Okay, let's get rolling, everyone. Good afternoon. I might ask you to mute. If you're not already muted, please go ahead and do so. Good morning and good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, perhaps based on where you might be joining us from. Yesterday's Innovation Summit, we had some folks pinging in directly from Israel, so it was their evening. So good day to you all, and welcome to the second Innovation Showcase of Technology Association of Oregon's Health Tech Summit. We are very excited to showcase early stage health tech companies in today's session. I am Shelley Bailey. If we haven't had the pleasure of meeting yet, I am the VP and Executive Director here in the Southern Willamette Valley for TAO. And I'm coming to you live from Eugene, Oregon in the Southern Willamette Valley. The rest of my team's in Portland, and thrilled to have Riley O'Brien, my colleague, join us, who's going to be on the back end today. She's been with TAO for 6 years. She's our VP of Events and Experiences. And you can reach out to us in the chat if you need support, and I'll cover that in a second. But I just want to say a couple logistical items before we start. Sounds like you're all muted, so we've taken care of that. And please stay on mute unless one of us calls on you. You can ask or respond to questions in the chat box publicly or privately by directing your message to me or Riley. Riley's under the name TAO Event Team, and we'll monitor that chat box. And so we'll ask you to engage with the participant icon on your screen. So feel free to raise your hand if you have a question when we open it up for Q&A. Please consider engaging with us on social media during our session today or anytime throughout the day. We love to share what's happening at TAO to capture participant takeaways, learning moments from our events. And so all of our social handles are listed here. And would just like to share a huge thank you to Otrati and to OBI and Israel Consulate General to the Pacific Northwest, as well as the California Israel Chamber of Commerce for supporting our 2 days of programming for the Health Tech Summit, and most especially for this Innovation Showcase. So we're going to get right down to business, and I'll queue up each of our presenters individually, and they'll run through a presentation, and we're going to do a Q&A for each one. And so on to our first presenter. First up from FAMLEE, we have President Shelley Bailey. Shelley, I'm going to kick it over to you.
Well, I suspect I should have taken myself off mute. So hopefully everyone can see the screen as well as everyone can hear me. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, perfect. Well, thank you, everyone. And my name is Shelley Bailey, and I'm the founder and president of FAMLEE Health, the nation's first and only fertility telehealth and treatment solution. But I want to, I guess, first just start off by thanking Skip Newberry, Riley O'Brien, and the entire team at TAO for having me here today, as well as thank you to Sally for moderating today's event. Today, I'll share with you just a little bit about myself, about the genesis of why FAMLEE Health was created, as well as share some information about where we are now, as well as where we are looking to go. So FAMLEE was born out of my own personal fertility struggles. In a previous life, I spent 20 years in specialty pharmacy as the co-owner of Central Drug Pharmacy, which is actually a Portland-based company. And during our duration there, we scaled our revenues to $73 million before we sold to the specialty division of CVS in early 2018. And during my time there, I spent a lot of time with HIV and hepatitis C work, as well as in government affairs and advocacy and community building for underserved communities. But in early 2018, when we exited the company, I thought, okay, it's time to really kind of focus on myself, focus on building a family. And I always, I guess, consider myself a little bit of an overachiever. And so I honestly hadn't put any thought into what my fertility story would look like. And I just assumed that hey, I've been good at other things. I guess I'll be good at, building a family when I want to, and really underestimated what that process would look like. And so my own journey started out by going to my OBGYN and sharing some of my personal struggles. And my OBGYN just simply said, hey, Shelly, there's just not a lot I do related to fertility. So if you would like some fertility support, I'm very happy to send you off to IVF. And although I'm really supportive of IVF solutions, just personally, I felt like there was something that could probably be done in the middle between very limited intervention and a lot of intervention. So that's kind of what I got to working on. And I was able to find a Portland area provider who really did more of a deep dive into hormones and discovered when you work 100 hours a week and you stress your body, there's really an impact on fertility and the correlation with stress. So identifying those hormone imbalances and then treating those imbalances with very inexpensive FDA-approved medications is what worked for me to conceive my daughter in 2019. And this was obviously a great story. I ended up starting to send girlfriends to this doctor. They were getting pregnant and sustaining pregnancy, and it was just wonderful. And so the end of 2020, I decided, okay, let's maybe jump back into business. Let's leverage some of the relationships that I personally had in the healthcare community and see what we could really do to help build out scalable and cost-effective fertility solutions to women and families throughout the nation. And so that's really how FAMLEE was born. And I am happy to share that I'm actually 34 weeks pregnant following the FAMLEE fertility solution for the second time with a second daughter in our family. And so the future of FAMLEE, kind of where we are and where we want to go, is we see ourselves as a comprehensive digital fertility and hormone treatment platform. So the first product that we currently have on the market is the FAMLEE fertility solution that focuses on digital diagnostics and treatment for fertility. And then our product life cycle is really kind of rinse and repeating for trimester 1, for postpartum, and then perimenopause and menopause. And then on the B2B side, we're building out our partnerships with insurers as a step therapy solution to IVF, with white label solutions, and then licensing our clinical protocols into EMRs, as well as partnering with employers and brokers to offer our solutions. So we definitely have a lot of things that we are currently working on and would like to work on. And part of why the company's name is FAMLEE and not like fertility specifically is because we really want to be able to help support families and women through their entire hormonal kind of life cycle. And so where we're at now is currently in the fertility market, the solutions are really disjointed. So, it's inconvenient for families to try to figure out what's going on. Many people are trying to piecemeal things together by using the internet, by using at-home labs, by talking to their OBGYNs who may or may not be very trained or interested in fertility. And the process is just inconvenient, it's exhausting, and then it's certainly financially prohibited for many families. So months of reproductive time, and often years, is wasted through this kind of like DIY journey. And losing time related to reproductive health is something that's really important to try to manage to the fullest extent possible. And related to kind of where people ultimately end up in their journey is many people end up at IVF. And, IVF is certainly kind of considered the gold standard with reproductive health, but the success rates are 53% after 3 attempts, meaning many families spend over $60,000 after 3 rounds of IVF to only have a success rate of 53%. And for women over 40, the success rate actually drops to 34% after 6 attempts. So there's certainly a need for an affordable and convenient integrated solution that people can use from the comfort of home. And so this is really where FAMLEE kind of fits into this program. We're looking to streamline the entire fertility journey. At FAMLEE, we really focus on identifying and correcting hormonal imbalances, as well as treating those hormonal imbalances. And so I guess, and then treatment is something that I really want to focus on. There's a lot of at-home lab companies for various disease states, and there are at-home labs, of course, for fertility as well. but it's the treatment part that often gets missed. And so lending on my background with HIV and hepatitis C work, it's not only unethical, it's actually illegal to do testing and say to someone, hey, you have HIV, good luck with that. Like 20 years ago, that would have been a death sentence for people. And so there's laws that prohibit healthcare providers from doing that. And I really reflected on kind of my experience with HIV and Hep C, and then thinking, gosh, why are we doing at-home labs for women, you know, possibly telling them you might have low ovarian reserve, meaning, you know, you don't have very many eggs left. Why are we doing that without providing that wraparound care and treatment? So those are the kind of unmet needs in the market that we're looking to fill with FAMLEE. And so the customer journey right now that people go through is to download our mobile app. The individuals fill out their kind of very comprehensive medical history. They then transition to doing their at-home labs. We test for 14 different hormones. So we test for all the reproductive ones that most people could imagine, but we also do more of a deep dive into looking at whole body health to really identify more of the root cause of what's going on with someone's fertility challenge. And once we have the lab results and we have the medical Q&A completed, we push that to our telehealth partner and combine our proprietary clinical protocols to provide a roadmap for our fertility providers to use during the telehealth visits with the consumers. And then, of course, if there are medications that need to be prescribed as a result of these interventions, those are sent from our pharmacy partner Walgreens to an individual's home. And you know, that's the kind of current fertility journey that our consumers go through. And so what's inside of our, you know, current fertility kits is the main thing people are paying for is the fertility treatment. So the fertility telehealth visits, and then the at-home lab testing. All of this is managed by a mobile app. The mobile app is actually how we provide information back to our customers, as well as how we push it to our partners. And we have ovulation and pregnancy tests, as well as a drug discount card that we provide. And we're currently getting our feet wet in the D2C market, but where more of our sales and marketing has really been focused on lately is B2B. And we really consider ourselves a step therapy type of solution before IVF benefits should kick in. So when employers and payers and insurers are building out their utilization management solutions for fertility, you know, we're kind of out here waving the flag and saying, hey, why don't you try a more cost-effective, less invasive fertility solution before more costly interventions are built into the options for families. There's actually 18 states with fertility mandates. Most people don't know about that. And FAMLEE meets or exceeds those fertility mandates in 15 of the 18 states. And of the companies listed here who have IVF benefits, they typically don't work with employers of less than 1,000 employees. So that's a great fit for FAMLEE to also be working with some of the employers who want to offer these types of comprehensive benefits, but just don't have the access to working with other companies in the market because of the size of their organization. And so where we're at today is we have collaborations with McKesson, with Walgreens Alliance Prime for our drug distribution. We work with a fantastic Oregon company, ZRT Laboratories, to provide our white labeling of our at-home labs. And then our telehealth partner is Prescribery Corporation. We're live in for iOS and Android on our mobile apps, because again, that's how we deliver care. And then our proprietary treatment protocols have been integrated into the workflow with our telehealth partner. And then of course we have customers currently going through the journey right now with telehealth and medications. And so, you know, if you have an interest in femtech or health tech or just fertility in general, certainly please reach out. We are working on our seed round right now. So if anyone's in the investment community or has friends in the investment community and has a passion for this, of course, please feel free to share my personal contact information. If you're an employer looking to provide a cost-effective fertility solution to your employees, we'd certainly love to hear from you. And then if you have a background in technology or marketing support, we're building our team and looking for the right individuals to help support us on our mission. So thank you everyone for listening today. And if anyone has any questions, I'm very open to responding.
Thank you, Shelley. What an amazing business model. And thank you for sharing your personal story. It's incredibly impactful. I do have a few questions here, and we've got still a little time to address those. My first question is, how are you navigating the world of telehealth into a more longitudinal disease state specific care? What does that journey look like for you?
So that's been much more difficult than I would have otherwise anticipated. There's a lot of telehealth out there. Most of it's kind of acute care. You know, someone's sick, they need a azithromycin or something. Working with the partners to really stage out where you're kind of almost providing this long-term type of primary care for a certain disease state has been very challenging. And so finding the right partners to help deliver that care and then building the IT back end to support this longer term telehealth relationship, as opposed to kind of you're just churn and burn acute care, has been very much a challenge, but we're very grateful for the partner we work with, and very, very proud of the results that we've had so far.
Thank you for that. And can you tell us what the pregnancy results for solutions like yours? What does that look like?
Absolutely. So we are new, so we don't have the long-term data, to share, but we rely heavily on NIH data related to hormones and the impact of hormone-based solutions on fertility outcomes. So from what data we can render from the NIH, about over 50% of hormone or fertility issues is related to specifically hormones and ovulation improvement. So that's really where we're focused on. We've had if you don't count my children as qualifying for outcomes, we have had 2 other babies born using the family fertility protocol. So we're new, but just having 2, I guess I'm hormonal because I'm pregnant, but just having 2 families that we've been able to help have children at such an early stage is really rewarding.
Congrats, and thanks for sharing. I think we'll conclude there. Folks, Shelley put our contact information there. It sounds like they're scaling and growing. And if you're an employer and you want to connect with them, please reach out. Thanks for sharing, Shelley.
Oh, of course. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Okay, we're going to queue up our next presenter, and that would be Predictamed. And so next I'd like to introduce Shlomit Steinberg-Koch, who's the co-founder and CEO of Predictamed. And thanks for joining us. We can see your presentation. You're set to go.
Yes, thank you, Sally. And thank you for pronouncing my name well. I know it's an effort. Okay, so hi everyone, my name is Shlomit. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Predictamed, and we're connecting the dots of undiagnosed autoimmune diseases. I'd like to start with a short video.
My first symptom was at birth, came out with an allergic reaction, had problems until the time I didn't have teeth come in properly, panic attacks at 12. 15 is when I finally started saying, there's something wrong. And I'm thinking and pointing to my gut. And it was from 15 to 35 that the journey continued to try and get an answer to what was happening to me.
So after 35 long years, Jennifer found that she was suffering all these years from an undiagnosed celiac disease. And this is the story of 50 million Americans that suffer from autoimmune diseases. Unfortunately, it takes these patients more than 4 doctors and at least 4 years to get a correct diagnosis. And besides the fact that these patients are going through a frustrating journey, billions of dollars are spent by the healthcare system. And a lot of it can be saved by early detection of these diseases. The way we see the problem, when you go to your primary care physician and you tell them that you have a migraine, you will probably get a pill. But the chances that during these 5 minutes of a visit, you'll have time to review all your medical history and connect the dots and realize that you have an undiagnosed autoimmune disease is really low. And that's why they tend to miss these diseases for many, many years. So we at Predictamed have built the first decision support platform for early detection and intervention selection of autoimmune diseases. And our solution is based on 4 steps. So we aggregate data from sources such as EMR and claims. We enrich it and analyze it using our deep learning engine. We identify which patients are at risk for having an underlying autoimmune disease. And then we alert the primary care physician and enable him, to intervene much earlier. Sorry, it's really late in Israel, so it's hard to pitch at 10 o'clock p.m. So this is how an Epic screen looks like. Epic is now, most of the use market is on Epic. And this is how our solution integrates within Epic. You can see, for example, in this case, there is a high probability for celiac disease. And when you click on a button, you can see based on which parameters the system got to this result of celiac. So we use explainability algorithms, which are really important in this case. So the value proposition is that early detection allows optimized and cost-effective intervention, and by that we align the incentives of all the 4 different stakeholders. So we improve the patient quality of life, we reduce the payer's burden, we optimize the provider's efficiency, and eventually the treatment would be much more effective when it's given in the earlier phase of the disease. The business model is divided into selling to providers and payers. Both are in SaaS licensing models. And our go-to-market is starting with hospitals that have primary care facilities, academic centers as well, then going to payers and HMOs, ICOs, and then private insurance companies. So we did some cost analysis to see if we can actually save costs for the payers. And we saw that only in celiac disease, we can reach cost saving of around $1.5 billion. We did the same for IBD, and we saw that we can save there $2 billion. And it's based on the prevalence of the disease, the undiagnosis rate, and the sensitivity of our algorithms, and the average cost saving per patient. So all in all, just in the first 6 diseases, we can save more than $4 billion, which is quite huge. And we've built a model also for providers to see how much we can save for providers. And we saw that for a provider that has 1 million patients, we can save almost $50 million, which is quite huge as well. So I have a very talented team of experts in AI and in the medical space. So my background is in biomedical engineering. Actually, this is my 2nd startup. The first one was in the field of melanoma detection, and it was based on an algorithm I developed. And later on, I joined Mazo Robotics, a company that was in the robotics field. It was eventually acquired by Medtronic. I was responsible there for the neurosurgeries department, and I was also the first employee of the innovation department in the company. My co-founder and CTO, Benny Getz, has been leading AI teams in the past 25 years. He's been working in 2 startups that were acquired, and also at Intel and Samsung. And he was a CTO of a cybersecurity startup. And we have 5 medical advisors. Some of them are world-renowned KOLs in the field of autoimmune diseases. And we have top leading investors, including Professor Schramm, who is the founder of Mazor, the company which I've been working for, and Yossi Matias, who is the head of Google in Israel. So we've partnered with the 2nd largest Israeli HMO, Maccabi, and to date we analyzed more than 4 million patients' records. And our solution is available for the next 7 diseases in the field of rheumatology, neurology, and gastroenterology. And we have some very promising results. We actually saw that we can shorten the diagnostic process by up to 4 years, which is quite significant. So we launched the company on January 2020, submitted several patents, raised pre-seed of $1 million and $1.25 million, completed the POC. We also did a POC with a pharma company, just won Shield of Stack competition, 1st place in Israel and top 12 worldwide. And now we are raising a seed round of $4 million in order to support our pilots with institutions such as Stanford Medicine, for example. And the use of proceeds is to scale R&D and sales and marketing, to expand to new disease indications, publish papers, and launch the product to market by Q3 2022. And if you are an investor or connected to a healthcare system, we would really like to be connected with you. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much, Shlomit, and sharing all these details about your business model. I have a few questions for you. Tell us about how you validated your solution.
So we validated our solution on 2.5 million EMR records of Maccabi and 1.7 million claims records of a US-based company. And the way we did it is like a typical machine learning algorithm. You train your models based on the database, and then you test your algorithms on a different set of data set, of course. And so we were able to train our system on thousands of patients' data and validated on hundreds of thousands of patients' data.
Sounds like a lot of work.
Yeah, took us a long time to do that.
No doubt. Well, what an exciting direction for you. Are there any other questions? I'm just opening my chat box. Feel free to raise your hand or unmute if you have any questions for Shlomit. Okay, I think we'll conclude there. Thank you so much for sharing, and thanks for staying up until the late evening there in Israel. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Okay, we're going to move on to our next company, and I'm going to introduce Fundamental Fitness Labs. And I'm very pleased to make an introduction for the founder and CEO, who is Andre Petett. Thank you for being here today, and I'm going to pass the mic to you.
Very good. Thank you so much, Sally. All right, so I'm going to share my screen here, I believe. Okay, that didn't go as planned. There we go. Okay. So there we go. So I'll just start off with, when you kind of look at our, we're loading up here, apologize. So Fundamental Fitness Labs was, we launched out, we were officially going to launch actually in March of 2020. And we were a face-to-face kind of business. And so that obviously didn't happen. But we're about the prevention side of healthcare. And I think when we think of healthcare, especially in the United States, I think everybody really thinks of it as, when you think healthcare, you think medicine, right? I mean, we don't think of prevention. And that's really where we sit in. And I like to say that medicine is what happens when your healthcare regimen doesn't work, right? And so that's really what we're about. And this is, our whole focus is on extending your health span, right? Lifespan is about how long you live. Health span is about how long you live actively. And we have actually some of the worst health spans in the Western Hemisphere in the United States. And some states are actually pretty low on the totem pole, if you will, as far as how that goes. And a lot of it's because we just don't teach people, right, about what's going on. So this is kind of what our goal is to extend that curve of active lifespan, right? And this is how we look at it. The biomarkers actually comes from a research project that was done at Tufts University back in the early 90s. And all of their patients were in their 60s, 70s, and 80s, right? So they didn't use young people to prove their model. They used folks that have been around, and they actually introduced a word to me that I never heard of called sarcopenia, which basically says as we mature in life, we tend to increase body fat and lose muscle mass. And that really is the cause of a lot of the issues that we run into as we mature. So when you look at the biomarkers and the things that talk about how how to have a longevity and healthy longevity on the left side there. One of the things that really pops out there is there's one thing that we all think about and talk about a lot that's missing on that list, and it's body weight, right? We focus so much on that in the society, but as you can see, it's not on the list, right? And there's a reason for that. And then on the right side really is how we at Fundamental Fitness Labs really look at addressing the things on the left. So the things on the left are what we need to be at, with testing and making sure we have all those things right. And on the right, we're working to make that happen. So strength training, nutrition. Interesting enough, I came up with the 8 fundamentals really a number of years ago when I first got into this industry, and was just looking at a holistic approach, because most folks in the health business, everyone in the fitness business, we're all focused on either lifting a whole bunch of weights and being really strong, or we're cardio endurance folks, we're marathon runners. But how do you really get good balance in everything? And so that's a real important part of the process, is how do you look at that? And then recovery was the last one I added, but it really is one of the most important. We don't think about it. And again, as we mature, we need more of that. But even younger folks, they find a lot of college athletes are having issues because of not having proper recovery. So that's real important. So get into our process. You know, I talked to some folks earlier today about this. When you talk about changing habits, because really being healthy is about changing habits for a lot of folks, it starts with relationship and mindset. And you see we have what's called a wellness guide. So our model is simple, right? We're actually a very high touch model. And as I'll go into at the end here, we'll talk about where we have to use technology to make that work. Because being high touch in this industry usually is very expensive, right? If you want to have someone co-navigating your health, you can do that, but you're talking about $50,000, $60,000 a year, which obviously is not in most people's budget, right? And so with us, we really look at how do we bring all that together, and I'll get into the technology side here at the end. But it's about relationship first and mindset. If you're going to change behaviors, you got to know what you're thinking about. And as people co-navigating, we really have to understand who we're dealing with. So we actually have some tests that we give folks to really figure out how they think and how they deal with getting instruction. If somebody comes back as what we call a rebel, if you tell them what to do, you're probably going to get a fight, right? But if someone comes back to you and they're a obliger, if you don't tell them what to do, they're probably not going to go anywhere, right? So understanding who you're talking to is going to be really important, and how they respond to direction. Our evaluations are physical and nutritional. That's been the nutritional part is a lot more important than I realized going in. I knew it was important, right? It's on the list of fundamentals, but it really is critical for folks getting where they want to go. And so we look at that and we give recommendations, but obviously if people are having problems managing their health, if you give them a recommendation and send them out on their own, they might not really get results, right? And so what we do is the follow-up, and that's where the wellness guide comes in, really as the co-navigator of the folks' health, really helping them through the process, answering questions, being that person, that accountability person, but also being that friend, right? Just really, again, creating that relationship part. And every quarter we come back and we do a new evaluation, right? So if you have, and we look at the physical side, we really start with structural issues, right? Because if you're out of balance, and a lot of us, because we've been on Zoom calls, we're all hunched over, and so we got posture issues, right? So we got to remember how to sit up straight, and so all these kinds of things. But if you have imbalance on one side of your body or the other, if you have balance in certain parts of your strength, right, front and back of the muscle, if that's not fixed, you're going to cause real problems down the road. So we really look at that structure up front, get people proper in the posture and that, and then move through from there. And then as you see them, we repeat, rinse and repeat, as I like to say. This is the kind of the crux of what I want to talk about today, right? So, you know, we got into this again about how do we help people? At the end of the day, how our number one focus as a company is how do we help our clients get where they need to get? And originally, you can see we were really focused, my background's in retail. So I have a lot of background in dealing with individual clients and doing home shows and events and all this kind of stuff to drive business. Our chief operating officer is very, very savvy in the social media side. So we were pushing to go get people. We're going to go see people. We're going to start doing events, and then COVID hit, and events stopped happening, and we couldn't go see people. And so what do we do, right? And one of the interesting things that obviously was a barrier, because when we were thinking of being, having office locations and doing everything individual, face-to-face, right? Being able to expand the business, being able to scale is going to be very capital intensive, right? You're getting, location means bringing people to new cities and all that. And that was going to be tough. The one thing that you'll notice that didn't change is the expert systems. And that's really where the technology of our business is really going to come into play. Because there's a lot of things that the wellness guys are going to need to do repetitively on their follow-up calls and emails and all these kinds of things that we can actually train the computers to do. We can train the machine to do, and therefore free them up to spend more time with clients, right? Our goal is to have the one-on-one interaction, but if you have to do all your emails and all your follow-ups, that takes a lot of time. It's not a lot of fun. Doesn't happen, right? So in order to scale, we really have, the technology is the only way we scale. Otherwise, we may be seeing a few clients for each wellness guide versus over 100 clients is what we have projected. And then what's really been great, and I went kicking and screaming digitally, right? I'm a face-to-face guy. I've been in sales my whole life. I love talking and seeing people. That's how it was founded, but obviously we can't do that if we can't see people. And so what's happened, because we went digital, we went into telehealth, right? And we started doing our evaluations. We figured out how to do our evaluations remotely. And so now we're able to do that. And that allows us to see people that we couldn't have seen before, which has been super exciting. In fact, we have a pilot going on with some individuals, making sure our systems work. And my mom and my aunt happen to be on that pilot. And my mom lives in Arkansas, my aunt lives in Louisiana. And there's no way we could have done that. And now it's like, oh, this is so cool, right? I can help our family. So that's been really exciting. We've moved that out. And then, but one of the other big changes is that we realized after COVID, and as people started really, organizations and individuals started really focusing on their health, right? I mean, realizing that when you have a condition like diabetes or high blood pressure, we've always kind of thought of those as long-term issues. And yeah, that'll happen. I'll deal with it someday, right? But we're finding with the situation now that that can take you out in a matter of days, if not weeks. And so there's a real focus on how do we improve that health. And then when you look at the disparities that are coming out in health, how do we really get into not just organizations and help companies deal with this, but also how do you help community organizations? How do you really get into the communities and help that happen? So we've been able to pivot into really focusing on those as more of the driver for our client acquisition, right? At the end of the day, the client is still the ultimate client, because that's people that we serve, the people that need the help, people that we're helping become healthy is our focus. How we get there has changed, right? But obviously, again, the expert systems, the one thing that hasn't changed is we still need technology to be able to see lots of folks. Because if we're doing it all manually, there's only so much you can do. The young lady that's running it for me now is doing a great work, but having to send out every email manually is limiting how many folks that we'll be able to see. So working with our IT group and working with the folks that are building that out for us, and having them build it based on the work that actually is being done, right? So a lot of times, the folks that have worked with CRMs or other things, they were built by the folks that thought it was a good idea, but not necessarily having direct conversation with the salespeople that were going to use it, right? This particular software is being built directly for the wellness guides and in direct conversation with the wellness guides. So it's going to be real effective in our opinion because of that. So I went through that pretty quickly, but that's who we are. And I'm gonna stop the share here. And if anyone has any questions, we can do that.
Thank you, Andre. Thanks for walking us through. I have a few questions.
Yes.
And folks, feel free to pop anything into the chat or raise your hand. So fitness is a pretty crowded space. Tell us, what's your differentiation? How is there still room within that crowded space for fundamental fitness labs?
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, it's one word, it's education, right? I mean, you think about the fitness landscape, there are so many people out in the business, but who's actually teaching people how to be healthy, right? Actually walking through the process, right? If you know what you're doing, you show up at the gym, you go do your work and you get results. But if you don't, and I've seen so many people at the gym just doing this work and they're not getting anywhere, and you can see it. It's like they're doing the hardest part, but they're not getting guidance on how to make it effective. So that's really the difference. We're going to guide people through that process in a way that I really don't see anyone else doing.
Thanks for sharing that. Tell us about community wellness.
Yeah,
Can you
well,
elaborate on that? What is that? What does that mean for your business? How do you see that?
Yeah, so in fact, I'm actually in one of our partners spaces right now. I'm here at Feed the Mass, right? And so they work with really feeding people. They do cooking classes, right? So they're already in the community doing work. So for us, it's about having partnerships with people that do things we don't. So they're in an education on the food side. We give people nutrition advice, but then how do they actually implement? So we're working on a project together called Families That Learn Initiative, where we take 1,000 underserved families and teach them everything from the health side to the nutrition side to the mental health side, and bring it all together in a way that actually helps, move the needle for individuals. And then because Feed the Mass is a not-for-profit, there's grant money out to actually help this work happen. Right? So it's really about how do you give back, because helping corporations is great and individuals, but helping the people that we've seen, especially that are most impacted right now, is really important to us as a company.
Thanks for sharing. Those are really impactful partnerships.
Yes, very nice.
Any other questions from the audience?
I see Shelly has her hand up.
Okay. I just needed to expand my screen. Okay, one sec.
That was it. That was an error if you're referencing.
Okay.
Sorry about that, Shelly.
No worries.
Presentation, but sorry about that.
We do have a question in the chat from Wendy
Yeah.
Lane. Wendy, if you
Yes.
don't mind, I'll just verbalize this. When did you start and how much were you able to raise?
Yep. So we're kind of funny. So we started officially, we're in our third iteration, right? So in this iteration, we started in February of 2019. And we actually, was interesting, we went into the Oregon Bioscience Incubator to build a metabolic device. We were going to be in the device business, well, at least building it for ourselves, because we felt that a lot of the devices, your Fitbit's not telling you your burn rate, it's telling you an algorithm burn rate for someone your height, maybe your age, right? So we want to get all accurate in that. What we found in that space is, one, we didn't want to build a device, right? That's a lot more work than we realized. But two, that no one was actually taking pre-injury and pre-disease data on our population. Like, right, my mom had shoulder surgery and I asked her how her shoulder was doing compared to what it was before. And she had no idea because she'd never tested her flexibility before that. And so what we realized is that we are, the basic stuff, the boring stuff, if you will, about what we're taking is data that no one else is getting. So that was super exciting. As far as capital raise goes, we have not raised any money. We've been basically bootstrapped. My background's in sales, and so my focus has always been getting a client first, and especially when you look at the organizational business work we're in now. So getting clients will fund what we're doing, and we'll grow through that. We're fortunate because the technology is helpful and necessary to scale, but it's not necessary to operate. And so like a lot of other folks in this industry, we're tech enabled, not tech focused, if you will. And so because of that, we can still move our business. Like the lady that had described what they were doing with the analysis. So you got to build everything out before you can do the machine learning. We don't have that problem. And so we're able to grow in that regard. So we're looking for clients, right? So any businesses that have a wellness plan that they're interested in looking at improving their response rate to, we definitely would love to have a conversation about that. So I appreciate the question.
Thank you.
Okay, if there's no other questions, I think we'll wrap up that presentation. Thanks so much, Andre.
Fabulous.
Great to hear about your business. And we've got one last but not least to present. And it's my pleasure to introduce Oren Nissim, who's the CEO of BROOK.HEALTH. And I'll pass the mic to you, Oren.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. I'll share my screen. So 1 second here. Okay, you guys able to see okay?
Looks great.
Well, thank you. So thanks so much. First of all, thank you to our friends at Technology Association and also our friends at the California Israel Chamber of Commerce for giving us the opportunity to present today. It's very nice to meet you. I'm going to go right into the heart of a problem that we've been, working on for a number of years now. And so the first thing I want to talk to you about is a little bit about the treatment gap in the world of chronic disease. So as you know, chronic disease is driving the vast majority of the expense in the US healthcare system today. And, especially in the world of Medicare, we think that the problem with managing chronic conditions is about sort of the inability to meet patients where they need to be met by the healthcare system today, because patients really need a very much of a holistic and a kind of a support system that really guides them on the day-to-day life. Most chronic conditions are actually things that need to be managed by the fact that they're sort of woven into your day-to-day life. You need to figure out how to deal with nutrition, how to deal with activity, how to deal with stress. All those things matter. All those things affect how a chronic condition sort of expands. And so there's a lot of day-to-day, a lot of hand-holding that is really required in order to do better. The reality is that most chronic conditions can actually be dealt with a lot better. And even some of our fellows here on the panel today have talked about it. Andre talked about it as well. In reality, lifestyle behavior change obviously leads to better management of these things. And the reality is that there's just a large gap in the ability to support. The large gap is because on the other side of the equation, primary care providers are completely overwhelmed by both technology and the need to provide for more and more patients. The average primary care panel today in the United States is about 3,000 people per every primary care doc. And the reality is that the average time in an office visit is about 7 minutes, of which more than 50% is actually being provided back into technology. So the need to feed the EMR systems takes a lot of time. And so the reality is that providers want to be able to provide better service to their patients. They want to be able to give them better guidance, but they simply can't. And even if we double, even if we triple the amount of providers in the United States tomorrow morning, just by magic, we still can't do it, because the amount of continuous support that is needed is just so overwhelming. Something changed, and what changed was that in 2019, CMS finally agreed. So CMS finally came back and said, okay, I understand that chronic disease really happens at home. The need to treat people with diabetes, hypertension, CHF, COPD, the need to treat those things is really about how they're going to address this at home. And so I'm going to create a reimbursement bridge. Effectively, I'm going to allow providers to be able to start charging for the service to be able to provide better treatment at the home. So this could be via telehealth, this could be via all sorts of technology tools, this could be via a lot more nurses calling people at the home. There's multiple ways to do it. And what was most important was that CMS said, I agree with the fact that in order to do that, providers need to be well compensated for their time, because without that, it's not going to be done. And this is how I'm going to bridge this gap. In reality, if you think about it from a financial perspective, it means that a can effectively earn more than $400,000 a year in providing this type of service to their population at home. So all good, right? Well, not really. Because what we really haven't solved is we haven't solved the fact that providers didn't get more time. This is money. This isn't time. So the problem is that providers don't have the means to actually do this well with their patient. As I said, they are overwhelmed already. They have so much to do already. And so frankly, even though they have the opportunity to provide a service and they have the opportunity to get paid for their time, it doesn't mean that it made things easier. And this is sort of where we came. And so, we really focus on empowering this relationship. We're focusing on empowering the relationship between the primary care provider and their patient at home, and basically to be able to sort of meet them where they are. So we work as a downstream entity from the primary care. We help manage and we help coach and work with patients at the home so that they can do better with their chronic conditions. And we do this while partnering with the primary care provider, while keeping them informed, while integrating with their care system in such a way that they can remain in the know. I'm assuming many people here on this call, obviously have heard about chronic conditions. You've heard about companies that are doing programs. You've heard about companies that are doing sort of platforms that can manage, people with chronic conditions in all sorts of ways. The main point that isn't connecting right now is that primary care was left out of the loop. We fundamentally believe that primary care is the quarterback of care for most people, especially in the world of Medicare. You could have some, employer-based solutions for younger audiences. When you get to the older age, Medicare would like to rely on their doctor to tell them what to do, would like to rely on their doctor for that relationship. And we need to basically be able to facilitate something better. So, we launched a platform. You see here that we have all sorts of shapes and sizes of partners we work with. We work with plans, we work with providers, we work with ACOs. We have already had over 50,000 people go through our systems. We do work both on the preventive side, especially in the world of diabetes prevention. And of course, we do a lot of work in the chronic care. If you think about our solution, really kind of the value proposition is that it's a turnkey, well-integrated solution into the current workflow of the primary care. So remote care management is what we do. The way we do it is we bring together, the understandings of lifestyle change and, lifestyle medicine. So we look at the nutrition, we look at the activity habits, we do look at the medication adherence as well. We look at the sleep, we look at the stress. And ultimately, the way we do it is we bring on the ability to, with the provider, choose the patients that are right for this type of solution. We basically co-author a plan for them. We deliver information, we deliver education, we deliver tools for these patients to do it at home. And I think the most important thing is that we do the coaching. So this is not about tech only, this is about the combination of tech and humans, kind of all working together in order to wrap around the patient and be able to give them the capability to do this. And as you see here, we do it across a range of condition, all sort of in the metabolic syndrome space. So, just by way of example, I guess, and sort of coloring this further, consider Rhonda, 73 years old. She has been carrying obesity and has had now hypertension for over 6 years. She has a great relationship with her provider and she has a great provider. The problem is that, getting into her day-to-day, understanding what's going on and how to basically make those small changes in order for Rhonda to, frankly, lose a little bit of weight and be able to get into a better hypertension control is hard because it requires a lot of day-to-day intervention. And so provider prescribes Brook. Brook, together with provider, does a healthy lifestyle assessment of Rhonda and basically pairs Rhonda up with the Brook system and with the Brook coach, where we set particular goals. The goals are about meeting Rhonda where she is. So the goals are not about here's what you should do, but the goals are around where you at, what's hard, what's not hard. Everybody has their story. Everybody can think about their health in multiple ways. Maybe for Rhonda, it's better to talk about nutrition. Maybe for Rhonda, it's better to be active day to day, but she doesn't want to talk about food at all. All those things are all okay. And to all those things, there is, the answer on the other side is start somewhere. You're going to make a change at the end. And so, Brook and Brook coach basically follows through with Rhonda, ultimately making her a little healthier, all while keeping her primary care provider in the loop, very involved as well, being able to, kind of really understand what's going on. And the result, of course, is that Rhonda is able to lose a little bit of weight. And more importantly, she is able to put her hypertension into, a much more controlled situation. So just from a tech perspective, I guess, there's, Brook's a platform. There is a patient-side application and a patient-side sort of website that is able to, provide the day-to-day, feedback to Rhonda. Ultimately, that is all based on a conversational UI interface that we've built for a number of years. So ultimately, when you're engaging with Brook as a patient, what you are doing is you're chatting. Part of the time you're chatting with our AI, part of the time you're chatting with our human coaches. The whole thing is sort of blended together in a pretty big way. And so ultimately, this is supposed to be your 24/7, highly available. You can talk to us whenever, and we will always respond within minutes. And the whole idea behind it is to bring care to be something that you can really rely on a day-to-day and don't need to just figure out when's the next time I can see my doctor. On the other side of this platform is the ability for a provider to actually see all this data coming together. It's the same system being used by the coaches and by the health trainers kind of on the Brook platform. So everybody's able to see the same data, and that system can then also integrate with sort of the EMR, EHR at the primary care side. We're very, consumer driven in our approach because we think, patients are not patients, they're consumers. They're consumers who have to have a problem. And so dealing with satisfaction, dealing with, are people engaged and are they using the Brook system is kind of so top of mind for us. And so on that side, you can see that our metrics are actually pretty high, and we're pretty encouraged by what we're seeing so far. Probably the most, thing that I take pride of is that the median age of a user on the Brook system is 61. And we have plenty of 75s and plenty of 82 years old on our system. And, that median age is sort of going and growing every single day because we have more and more Medicare people joining us. On the health outcome side, people on our weight loss programs, 46% of them kind of reach the goal of losing about 5% of their body weight, which is what's required by the CDC to be avoiding diabetes. 22% of the people that are using Brook in the world of hypertension have been able to lower their hypertension by about 10 points. The people in diabetes have been able to lower their A1C by at least half a point after about 4 months. So there's, kind of a range of results across the board. From a model, we really focus on working on services whereby there is an at-risk component here. There is a reimbursement component here. And so if we work with a plan directly, most of the time, this is all about prevention and about savings that is stemming from the prevention of the onset of diabetes. When we work with a provider on the ACO, ultimately, there's a reimbursement model, as I said in the beginning, that they can charge for the service, and then we basically charge them sort of a flat license fee. We've seen over the past year that we are doing much more managed service because the reality is that a lot of these providers have also lost staff. We all know about the big resignation, about people wanting to work more out of home. And so we are able to provide a very comfortable environment for healthcare practitioners to work in. And so we've been doing much more kind of a managed service version of what we do. Lastly, I'll just summarize by saying that, we basically create value to all the stakeholders that are kind of in this ecosystem. So, of course, focusing first on primary care, we not only take care of those patients that they're having a hard time giving enough attention to today, and therefore reducing a lot of their provider burden, but we are able to create another additional revenue stream. And ultimately, what we do is we close gaps in care. And so we improve the quality, measurements, and performance. For the patient side, we are the personal health coach, and we provide a 24/7 care. And we're able to basically be their friend, be their coach, sort of at their corner to be able to answer their needs on a day-to-day basis. And to the plan, ultimately, this is a pop health type approach, and what it does, it is helping to improve both on the side of the chronic management and also on the side of the prevention. We're a little bit of a later stage. We're raising sort of a late A/early B round right now. So happy to follow up and talk to people if they're interested in talking about investment opportunity. But just wanted to kind of lay out our story, and thank you guys for listening. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Oren. Really impressive. And we might have time for one question here because we're just over the 1 o'clock hour. Tell us about scalability of this. How do you see that playing out?
Sure, one of my favorite topics. So the all the investment we've done to the combination of the AI and the coaching was really around that. It was really around the fact that how much of the conversations on a day-to-day basis can actually be done by the bot, and how much of that can be done by the human. And there's a lot that could be done by a bot while not dropping the attention and the ability to really answer well the person on the other side, and that is what scales our coaching. So an average coach on the Brook system today is able to support north of 1,000 people a month, and that just is a constant thing that's rising on our system. So that's how we treat this scale.
Thank you for that. We're going to wrap up today's presentation, and we thank you so much, Oren, for sharing your journey with us, and thank you to the other panelists for sharing about all these really innovative and distinct solutions. I'm feeling personally extremely inspired, and gosh, we have so much good work to do. A reminder for attendees that these are recorded and they'll be posted on our YouTube channel later. Feel free to share them out with your network. And we're happy to get you connected back with these fine folks and their businesses. And if there are no other questions in the chat, we are going to wrap up today's session. So thank you to all of you. And we look forward to connecting back, and thank you to our sponsors, and we wish everyone a safe and healthy holiday season. Come back for more. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.